Hi everyone, I'm your host Faisal. Welcome to my channel Tales Beyond the Bars.
The moment someone said we would be the perfect couple, something inside me shifted in a way I could not undo. It was like a quiet truth had been sitting between us for years, waiting for someone brave or careless enough to say it out loud. And once it was said, I could not stop hearing it. My name is Alan. I am 32 years old, and I manage a family restaurant in a small town in the Midwest. It is the kind of town where everyone knows your name and nothing dramatic ever happens. My days are simple. I wake up early, check deliveries, talk to suppliers, help in the kitchen when we are short-staffed, and make sure customers leave happy. It is not exciting, but it is steady, and I like that. And for the past 8 years, Gabriella has been the steadiest part of my life. She is 30 and works as a pharmacist. We met in college during a statistics class neither of us understood. She dropped her pen during a lecture, and I picked it up. We both joked about failing the class, and somehow that small moment turned into 8 years of friendship. It was never dramatic. There was no instant spark or romantic music playing in the background. We just slowly became part of each other's everyday lives. Study sessions turned into coffee runs. Coffee runs turned into long walks. Long walks turned into sharing everything. For 8 years, we did birthdays together, holidays together, breakups together. We helped each other move apartments. We celebrated promotions. We sat on kitchen floors when one of us felt lost. We knew each other's favorite food, worst habits, secret fears, and the things we never told anyone else. She dated a few guys. I dated a couple women. None of it lasted. Whenever one of us got hurt, the other showed up with coffee and advice that was usually terrible but always honest. People always assumed we were dating. Friends would tease us. Coworkers would make jokes. Even strangers would smile at us like we were obvious. But we always laughed it off. To us, it made sense to stay just friends. It was safe. It was comfortable. We did not want to risk losing something that already felt perfect. A few weeks ago, we were at a backyard birthday party for a mutual friend. Nothing special. Just cheap beer, burgers on the grill, and music playing from old speakers. Gabriella and I were sitting next to each other on the porch, talking about how exhausted we both were from work. Then one of our friends, drunk enough to be honest, looked at us and said, "You two would be the perfect couple." I remember everything about that second. The smell of grilled meat in the air, the music playing in the background, the way Gabriella froze for just a moment. I turned to look at her, expecting her to laugh it off like always. But she did not laugh right away. She looked at me, and there was something different in her eyes. Not embarrassment, not annoyance, just surprise. Like someone had spoken a truth neither of us had dared to say. I forced a laugh and shrugged. She smiled, but it was softer than usual. Then we both went quiet, not our normal, comfortable silence. This one felt heavy, fragile. When the party ended, I walked her to her car. We stood there longer than usual. The night was quiet, and I could feel that something had shifted, even though neither of us mentioned it. "Good night, Alan," she said softly. "Good night," I replied. I went home, but I could not sleep. I stared at the ceiling, replaying that moment over and over. The way she looked at me. The way my heart had reacted when someone called us a couple. It felt like a door had been opened, one we had ignored for years. And now I did not know if I should close it or step through. After that night, nothing changed, but everything felt different. We still texted every day, still grabbed coffee after our shifts, still complained about our jobs. But there was something underneath it now. Something unspoken. I started noticing small things I had somehow ignored for years. The way she listens to me fully, like nothing else matters. The way she tucks her hair behind her ear when she is nervous. The way she looks at me when she laughs, like I am her safe place. A few days later, we met for lunch. The restaurant was crowded, so we sat in her car to talk. She leaned her head back against the seat and sighed. "It is weird," she said. "People keep saying things about us." I gave a small laugh. "Yeah, I have heard it too." She looked at me carefully. "Does it bother you?" I should have said no right away. Instead, I hesitated. That small pause felt louder than any answer. She noticed. I could see it in her eyes. But neither of us pushed further. Later that week, I helped her move some supplies at the pharmacy before closing. It was late. and the place was quiet. While we worked, she talked about her last relationship and how it ended. "Comfort is not always the same as happiness," she said quietly. The words hit me harder than she probably meant them to. On the drive home, I realized something I had been avoiding. Maybe we had been hiding behind comfort for years. Maybe we were scared to admit there was something more because we did not want to lose what we had. The next weekend, we went for a late-night walk through the park. The town was quiet, and the street lamps gave off a soft glow. Our shoulders brushed as we walked. The silence between us felt delicate. At one point, she stopped and looked at me. "You have seen me at my best and my worst," she said. "If anyone understands me, it is you." I felt the words building in my chest, the truth I had been afraid to say, but I swallowed it. We reached her car and stood there again, both of us waiting for something. She whispered, "Good night, Alan." And once again, I let her walk away without saying what I felt. But deep down, I knew we were no longer just friends the way we used to be. Something had changed. And sooner or later, one of us would have to decide what to do about it. The week after our late-night walk felt longer than any week before it. I tried to focus on work, but my mind kept drifting back to Gabriella. Every time my phone buzzed with her name, my heart reacted in a way it never had before. We were still acting normal. We still joked. We still sent each other random photos during the day. But under all of it, there was tension. Not bad tension, just awareness. Like we were both standing near a line we had never crossed. That Thursday night was especially exhausting. We were short-staffed at the restaurant, a delivery was late, and 2 customers complained about the same thing. Normally, I handle stress well. But that night, everything felt heavier. When I finally got home, I was tired and slightly feverish. I had mentioned on the phone earlier that I did not feel great. I planned to heat up leftovers and go straight to bed. Before I even opened the fridge, my phone buzzed. "You sound awful. I am coming over." I did not argue. 15 minutes later, Gabriella knocked on my door holding a small bag of medicine and a container of soup. She walked in like she had lived there forever. She set everything on the counter and immediately took control. "Sit down," she said. "You look terrible." I obeyed without thinking. She checked my temperature, handed me water, and made sure I ate every spoon of soup. I watched her move around my kitchen, comfortable and focused, like taking care of me was the most natural thing in the world. And suddenly, it hit me. This was not just friendship, this was something deeper. After I ate, we moved to the couch and turned on a movie. She wrapped herself in a blanket and sat close to me. Not across from me like before, right next to me. At first it felt normal. We had always been physically comfortable around each other. But then I became aware of every small detail. The warmth of her shoulder against my arm, the soft rhythm of her breathing, the way her knee rested lightly against mine. Halfway through the movie, I fell asleep. When I woke up, the room was dim and quiet. The TV was still playing softly in the background. Gabriella was asleep with her head resting on my chest. One of her hands lightly held onto my shirt like she did not want to drift away. I did not move. I just lay there, listening to her breathing, feeling her weight against me. And for the first time in 8 years, I allowed myself to admit it. I loved her. Not as a friend, not as a habit, not as comfort. I loved her in a way that scared me. When morning light filled the room, she stirred slightly. We woke up almost at the same time. Our faces were close, too close for just friends. We stared at each other for a long moment. Neither of us smiled. Neither of us joked. There was something unspoken in that silence. Recognition. Then she quickly sat up and brushed her hair back. "We should get breakfast," she said, pretending nothing had happened. "Yeah," I replied, also pretending. But everything had happened. Over the next few days, people around us seemed to notice what we refused to say. One of my servers smirked at me during a shift and said, "You and Gabriella act like an old married couple." I laughed, but it felt different now. Later that afternoon, Gabriella told me one of her coworkers asked if we were secretly dating. She rolled her eyes, but I could see it bothered her. That night, when I drove her home after coffee, I could not hold it in anymore. "Do you ever wonder," I said carefully, "if maybe we have been missing something?" She looked at me, calm but serious. I think about it more lately, she admitted. Her honesty made my heart race. We parked outside her place. She stepped out of the car but did not go inside right away. She stood there, playing with her keys. If we try anything, she said softly, we cannot go back to how it was. I know, I replied. That is what scares me. She nodded. It scares me too. But neither of us stepped away. It felt like we were standing at the edge of something big, a decision that could change everything. A few nights later, she came over after a long shift. She dropped her bag on the floor and kicked off her shoes. Instead of sitting across from me, she came and sat right next to me. We talked about her day, about work, about nothing important. While she was laughing about one of her coworkers, she rested her head on my shoulder. I hesitated for a second, then slowly put my arm around her. She did not pull away. She leaned closer. My heart pounded so loud I was sure she could hear it. I turned my head slightly toward her. She looked up at me at the same time. There was no dramatic music, no perfect timing, no big speech. It just happened. I leaned in and kissed her. It was soft and slow, careful, like we both knew this moment had been waiting for years. When we pulled back, she let out a quiet breath and laughed nervously. We really did that, she whispered. Yeah, I said. And in that small, simple kiss, 8 years of friendship shifted into something new. We were not just friends anymore, and there was no going back. After that first kiss, nothing felt confusing anymore. It was not dramatic. We did not suddenly turn into a different version of ourselves. We were still Alan and Gabriella. We still laughed at stupid jokes. We still argued about which pizza place was better. But now, there was honesty between us. We did not need to ask, what are we? We both knew. The next morning, she came over before her shift. She stood in my kitchen drinking coffee like she always had. But this time, when she left, she kissed me goodbye without hesitation. And that small, simple act felt bigger than any grand romantic gesture. We started spending even more time together. Not because we forced it, but because it felt natural. She would come over after work and fall asleep on the couch next to me. I would stop by the pharmacy with her favorite coffee on long days. We began planning weekends instead of just meeting randomly. One Sunday, I invited her to dinner with my parents. They had known Gabriella for years. She had been at birthday parties and holiday dinners before. But this time, it felt different. When we walked into my parents' house, my mom looked at us closely. Gabriella held my hand without thinking. My mom smiled slowly. About time, she said softly. My dad shook my hand, then pulled Gabriella into a hug like she had always belonged there. It was not awkward. It was not surprising. It was almost like everyone else had been waiting for this moment longer than we had. A week later, Gabriella invited me to her parents' house. I had met them many times before, but I was nervous anyway. This time, I was not just the best friend. Her mom pulled me aside in the kitchen while Gabriella was setting the table. You always took care of her, she said quietly. I am glad you finally realized it. Quote. Her dad shook my hand firmly and said, just keep doing what you have always done. And I promised myself I would. As weeks turned into months, we started building small routines together. She began leaving a toothbrush at my place. Then some clothes. Then a drawer slowly filled with her things. We cooked dinner together almost every night. She chopped vegetables while I handled the stove. We argued playfully about seasoning. We cleaned up side by side. It felt easy, not forced, not rushed. One night, while we were sitting on the couch after dinner, she rested her head against my chest and said, I always felt safe with you, even when we were just friends. Her words were simple, but they meant everything. I think I loved you long before I understood it, I admitted quietly. She lifted her head and looked at me. There were no tears, no dramatic reaction, just truth. I think I did too, she whispered. Moving in together was not some big planned decision. It just happened. She was already staying over most nights. One weekend, we moved the rest of her things into my place. There was no official announcement, no social media post, just two people choosing each other every day. Living together was not perfect. I left dishes in the sink sometimes. She took over the bathroom cabinet with her skincare products. I snored when I was too tired. She liked the room colder than I did at night. But every small disagreement ended with a conversation, not silence. One night, about a year after our first kiss, we were sitting on the couch talking about nothing important. She was leaning against me like she always did. I looked at her and felt something steady inside me. Not panic, not fear, certainty. I reached into the drawer beside the couch where I had been hiding something for weeks. She noticed the shift in my posture. "What are you doing?" she asked with a small smile. I pulled out a small box and held it in my hands. "I want to spend every day with you," I said honestly. "Even the boring ones. Especially the boring ones." Her eyes widened slightly. For a second, she just stared at me. Then, she covered her mouth with her hand, shaking her head like she could not believe it. "Alan," she whispered. I opened the box. "I do not want to imagine life without you anymore." She did not cry right away. Instead, she leaned forward and hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. "Yes," she said into my shoulder. "Yes, of course, yes." We got married the following spring in a small garden surrounded by family and close friends. There were no huge decorations, no dramatic speeches, just simple vows and honest promises. When I looked at her standing across from me in that quiet garden, I felt calm. Not overwhelmed, not nervous, just sure. After the wedding, life did not suddenly become a fairy tale. We still worked long hours. We still worried about bills and responsibilities. But we faced everything together. That summer, I finally opened my own restaurant. It had been a dream of mine for years. Gabriella stayed up late helping me go over paperwork, menus, and small details. On opening day, she stood beside me as we unlocked the doors. "I am proud of you," she said, squeezing my hand. I realized then that the best part of success was sharing it with her. Months later, early one Saturday morning, she woke me up before sunrise. Her eyes were filled with tears. For a moment, I panicked. Then, she handed me something small. 2 pink lines. I stared at it, confused at first. Then it hit me. We were going to have a baby. I laughed and cried at the same time. She did too. We sat on the edge of the bed, holding each other, trying to understand how our lives had changed again. We thought that was the biggest surprise. We were wrong. At our first ultrasound appointment, we were nervous but excited. Gabriella squeezed my hand the entire time. The room was quiet except for the soft sound of the machine. The doctor looked at the screen for a little longer than expected. Then he smiled in a way that made us both confused. "Well," he said gently, "I hope you are ready." "For what?" I asked. "You are having twins." For a second, neither of us reacted. It felt like the words were floating in the air without meaning. Then Gabriella looked at me with wide eyes. "Twins?" she repeated. The doctor nodded. We both started laughing, not because it was funny, but because it was overwhelming. We had just wrapped our heads around one baby. Now there were 2. On the drive home, we kept switching between excitement and panic. 2 cribs, she said. 2 car seats, I replied. Double the diapers. Double everything. But under the shock, there was joy. Pure, deep joy. The pregnancy was not always easy. There were days Gabriella felt exhausted and emotional. There were nights when she could not sleep comfortably. I tried to help in every way I could. I cooked more. I cleaned more. I went to every appointment. Watching her change during those months made me love her even more. She was strong, even on the days she felt weak. She was patient, even when she was uncomfortable. She did not glow like in the movies. She was real, and that made it even more beautiful. We built 2 cribs in the nursery together. We argued over baby names. We stood in store aisles staring at shelves full of baby bottles, wondering why there were so many options. One evening, while folding tiny clothes, Gabriella looked at me and smiled. "Can you believe we almost stayed just friends?" she asked. I shook my head slowly. "I cannot imagine that version of our life anymore," I admitted. The day the twins were born felt unreal. The hospital room was bright and filled with movement. I held Gabriella's hand while she squeezed mine harder than I thought possible. When I heard the first cry, my heart stopped. Then came the second. A girl and a boy. The nurse placed them gently in our arms. They were so small, so fragile. I looked at Gabriella, and she looked at me. We did not need words. This was it. This was the life we had built from a simple friendship. Later that night, when everything was quiet and the babies were asleep in their small hospital beds, I sat beside Gabriella and held her hand. 8 years, I whispered. 8 years of being just friends, and I never realized how much I loved you until someone said we would be perfect together. She smiled softly, tired but happy. We were already perfect, she said. We just needed to see it. Years passed faster than I expected. The house became louder. Toys covered the living room floor. Sleepless nights turned into early mornings filled with laughter. Our daughter had Gabriella's eyes. Our son had my stubbornness. They fought over toys and then fell asleep side by side. Life was not always calm. There were stressful days at the restaurant. There were long shifts at the pharmacy. There were moments when we felt tired and overwhelmed. But every night, no matter what happened, we came back to each other. Sometimes we would sit on the couch after putting the kids to bed, exhausted but peaceful. Gabriella would rest her head on my shoulder like she did all those years ago. I am glad we were brave, she would say. So am I would answer. When people see us now, they see a family. They see a husband and wife raising twins in a small town. They see something steady and strong. What they do not see are the 8 years of friendship that built the foundation for everything. The quiet moments, the fear of losing each other, the hesitation before the first kiss. They do not see how close we came to never crossing that line. Our story did not end with fireworks or dramatic confessions. It ended with something better. It ended with a home filled with laughter, with 2 tiny hands reaching for us, with a love that grew slowly, honestly, and naturally. And sometimes, when I think back to that backyard party, I smile, because all it took was one simple sentence. You too would be the perfect couple. They were right. I work hard to bring these stories to you, so please give this video a like. It truly gives me strength.